please. Good evening, and I want to welcome you to a series of studies on best life ever. All of us, as we live on this planet Earth, it's our desire to live best lives, free of sickness, free of worries, free of all the troubles that we go through this world. And this week, you are privileged to log in and follow the presentations that are going to be made by Mrs. Jean Wright. And Mrs. Jean Wright is the co-founder of Be Free Lifestyle. And she's coming from the Republic of South Africa. And in this group, she is the director of education. And the reason why I want to appeal to you viewers and everyone else who is following us is from today, she's going to be building up different topics. So if you miss one, you miss the most important steps in your life, which could have prevented death or any sickness. So therefore, do not even miss the presentations. Anchoring today is Mukwakwa Abinari, one of the organizers with Professor Himonga. Therefore, friends, I urge you to invite your family members, to invite neighbors, to whoever is now listening, It's an opportunity that you invite a friend. When you do that, you save a life. We want all of us to live best lives ever in this world. Because when we do that, we are going to be good citizens who are going to be very productive, making sure that our country, Zambia, our world, is on top of things. I hope you are going to invite a friend and you're going to be following us. At this point in time, may I call Mrs. Jean Wright. Welcome, Ms. Jean Wright, to this important occasion, and we are happy that you heard our call, that indeed you should come here and share with us the best life ever. Oh, it's so beautiful, and we are happy to be with you. Thank you very much.
What an absolute privilege it is to be here. As we flew over the Kafue River, something very distinct happened. The ground below us became green, and I got excited because I love green, and it held promise to it. I also realized that I was very far away from home because home is east of Cape Town. But I want to tell you, the folks have been so great. I feel as though I have come home, and I just want to say thank you for that. Now, what I'm hoping to do is to share with you the very foundation of what I have learned in the last 30 years. I wish I knew it then, what I know now. And you have been privileged to be able to learn it in just 7 sessions. So I want to say thank you. And I wonder if you'd be offended. I just want to invite the Creator God to come here and to bless us. God, you created this earth. You created each one of us, and you put a recipe into us. Will you come and touch our minds and help us to remember this recipe as it gets unfolded? Thank you for giving it to us. Amen. And so it's already been announced that the whole series is called The Best Life Ever. I've been involved with it for about 30 years, and truly it works. And so I just want to say a warm welcome to all of you. I hear we have some Asian community here as well, and I'm absolutely delighted. I have some very precious Asian friends, so this particularly is such an honor to me. And I need to say that what we're doing here is not for gain. We are not doing it to make money. We're just doing it for educational purposes. And you always have to give a disclaimer at the beginning that says this is not designed to be medical advice. It's come out of many years of research, very big studies that back up what we are going to share with you. Now, for a moment, you're looking at me. And I want you to just close your eyes, just go on a memory trip. Think back about how you've been feeling in the last week, maybe the last month. Have you been feeling good all the time? Can you with confidence say to me, I've been feeling good? Or do you just generally feel good? Or do your days start badly and you find yourself having to drag yourself around in the day because the energy just doesn't want to pick up without a few cups of coffee? But I want to tell you, your mission in this planet has not ended yet. And it's not fun being exhausted. And if you're feeling that you're not coping, then now's the time to actually start doing something about it so that you can actually really live. Now, there are a few words that we need to share, and the one word is chronic. And that's very simple because you probably have all heard of them talking about chronic disease. And chronic just means that you've had it for 3 months. and it hasn't come right. So we're going to be using that. And we want to look for a moment, what causes our diseases? Do they just happen because we're getting old? Or do you think that possibly we actually cause our own diseases? Do you think the statement that we do cause it could be true? Because I have come to believe that it is. As we see the changes, when people just start making one little change, then two changes, then three changes, and we see the difference in what happens to them, we know it works. So we talked about chronic, and now we want to talk about principle. And a principle is just something that guides you. It's something that you choose. So you may find we're all together listening to this, and you may have different principles to mine. And what we want are principles that are actually going to help us. So if we look at this plate, let's look at the food on the left-hand side and look at the food on the right-hand side. Which one do you think is a good principle to have? Is it a good principle to eat the food on the left, or is it a good principle to eat the food on the right? Okay, right. It's the one on the left that is the one. Now, there are more principles. I have a kettle, and it comes with a 4-page booklet, and it's got a 2-year warranty. Now, this is something you're always interested in. When you buy something electrical, you want to know what guarantee comes along with it. Now, this particular 4-page booklet says I must only put water into it. You see, it's built so that if there's no water in it, it's going to cut out so that it doesn't get damaged. But I get a bright idea. I look at the bottom, I see there's no element in the bottom of the kettle. So I decide I'm going to fry an egg. So I take and I put some oil down, I drop it down, open up the lid, drop the oil down, break the egg into it. And what happens to the kettle? It trips. And I get upset because I've bought the kettle to work. Now, who's doing something wrong, the manufacturer or me? Yes, it's me. I can't go and ask them for my money back because it wasn't designed to actually fry an egg. Now I'm taking you to a car. It's getting more complicated, and this particular car is mine. And it's got a 433-page instruction manual. And one of the very important things that it says, only put petrol in. Now, what's going to happen if I decide I'm going to put diesel into it? Am I going to get very far? No, I'm not. My car is going to break down, and I'm afraid the warranty won't work on it. Now, you are not as simple as a kettle. You're far, far more complicated than a car. You've got a brain that works. You've got a heart that beats. You can think for yourself. The other two can't make choices for themselves. And you see what's happening here is you can make your own choices. You can make good choices. You can make bad choices. What's a lifestyle? A lifestyle is how you think and work. And I want to tell you about this lifestyle that I'm going to introduce to you, and it's based on principles. Remember, your principles can be good or they can be bad. And the principles that I'm going to introduce to you are the ones that have consistently worked for us. And if you know these principles, you can go absolutely anywhere, and you'll be able to apply them, and they will work for you. Doesn't matter what part of the world that you go into, you will be able to apply them. So we're going to introduce to you 8 principles that when you put them together, they work very, very powerfully. We all know about food, and I think that's part of the reason why some people are listening. But this isn't a diet. This truly is a lifestyle. And we have seen it consistently just help prevent disease and help reverse disease. And at that point, point, you really start feeling the difference. So these principles are a bit like a wall that they're there to keep out diseases. And in John 10 verse 10, it says it calls it a more abundant life. And so what we're going to do now is you need to put your seatbelt on, because we're going out for a drive down on these 8 principles. We're starting with 1 today, and today's one is called Eat Best for Life. And I'm going to read a statement from one of my favorite authors. It says, pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, and trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. Every person should have a knowledge of nature's remedial agencies and how to apply them. But that's a bit hard to remember, isn't it? So some dear person took those 8 principles and put them into an acronym. And if you read carefully, you're going to see NewStart. N is for nutrition, E is for exercise, W is for water, S is for sunlight, T for temperance, A for air, R for rest, and T is for a trust in the Creator God. So let's use these principles. What we're going to do is we're going to build a wall out of them. And if you look carefully at this wall, you're going to see, and look downwards, you are going to see NewStart. And so we're going to see that each one of these bricks is actually a lifestyle principle. Now, if we've got all the bricks together, and they look like quite sturdy bricks to me, we've got a strong wall. But what happens if I pull out one brick? It starts getting weaker. What happens if I pull 2 or 3 bricks out of it? We have a weak wall. And so what we're going to start with tonight is nutrition. That's the N right at the top of the wall. And, you know, I'd love to share with you everything that I know about nutrition, but it's just a bit too much. So what we're going to do is to just form a foundation that will work on its own. We can teach you other things another time that can speed up the healing process, because what we're looking for is a very high quality life for you. So where are we going to start? Just a little bit of chit chat. Nutrition must be simple and tasty. You know that. And I hope the picture there looks a little bit like home, because it is home. And our big thing is to go for unrefined foods. And I'm amazed at the markets that are around and all the food. And as I look, I'm so impressed at what is available to you from a food point of view. And that's the type of food that we really want to go for. Now, there's something very sobering that was said at the beginning of last year. They said, if we don't make a change to our lifestyles, if we don't make a new start, all the people who are born after the year 2000 are not going to live as long as their parents did. We went through a long period where we did live longer, and they said that those born after 2000, unless the change is made, they're going to be too sick to survive. So now we're going to the principles. Remember we learned them? And this is an easy one because it takes no money at all. And it says, chew your food slowly and well. Now, if you look at the picture up on the top, the piece of broccoli up on the top right-hand side, and you'll see different minerals in little circles around. There's some vitamins there as well. And those little circles are like envelopes, and all the nutrients in the food are tucked into little envelopes. And you have to chew the food to actually break open those envelopes. If you don't chew the food, those envelopes are going to go right through you. You may have a really, really great diet, but because you're not chewing properly, the food just goes in your mouth and comes out the other end. And it's very important to remember that digestion does start in the mouth. So you mix in all of this food with the saliva. If you're not chewing, you're going to start getting a bit bloated, a bit gassy. Your digestive system is going to be unhappy. And you're going to have a fire in your belly is going to come up. And that we really, really don't want. So our first one was chew the food properly. And the second principle is don't drink with your meals. You get to say, oh no, don't do that to me. Because what you can do is you take food in your mouth, you pick up the glass, give it a few chews, pick up the glass, drink it, and down it disappears. What's happened to those little envelopes? And digestion just isn't happening. And what happens is when you mix up the food with liquid, it now becomes much watery. So it lands up staying in the stomach for too long. Now the stomach is hotter than the rest of the body when it's working. And what happens is this food stays there. It starts, they call it fermenting, but it's actually going rotten. And it causes indigestion. So if you want to have water, have it a half an hour before the meal and an hour after the meal. Right, so we've done 2. We've said chew, and we've said don't drink with your meals. Now I'm going to show you a very important picture. And there are 2 stomachs. I've got a healthy stomach, and I've got an unhappy stomach that is suffering from indigestion. Now, the one on the left-hand side has got hydrochloric acid, so that's a type of acid that the stomach makes. And at the top of the stomach, there are 2 arrows there. There's a ring muscle. Look at that ring muscle. It's closed. Now, let's go across to the right-hand one, and we didn't chew properly, we drank with our meal, and the food starts fermenting. And if you look carefully, you're going to see that ring muscle is open. So we've got hydrochloric acid on the one hand that closes the ring muscle and stops food from going back up. On the other hand, we've got fermentation acid, which is the one that causes indigestion, and it opens the ring muscle. Now, you've got a body clock. This is still about eating in between meals. Your body has lots and lots of clocks on the inside. And what it likes is for you to have regular habits in your lifestyle. So that it knows when to anticipate, when it must produce substances that will actually help you digest food, to sleep, and to do a lot of other things that we will talk about during the course of this week. Now, when we snack in and when we eat in irregular meals, then our clock doesn't know when to work. And again, it doesn't produce what it needs to actually digest the food, and the food stays in the stomach for too long, and another reason for it actually fermenting. And some of the symptoms that you get of indigestion, you've probably experienced a burning in the stomach. But then you can get, because the ring muscle is open and the stomach is trying to work to try and get rid of the problems it's facing, some of the acid goes back up and you can start getting a burny throat, you can develop a cough, and you're really feeling uncomfortable. So we're back to our picture. Remember, hydrochloric acid closes the ring muscle at the top of the stomach. Fermentation acid opens it. If you're suffering from indigestion, you know which type of acid do you have? Yes, you have fermentation acid. Now, I want to take you through a study. This is the Harvard Nurses' Health Study. And they took a huge group of nurses and they fed them the breakfast. And they chose everything in the breakfast very carefully. So they gave them a cereal with some cream because they wanted to know what happens when you give something fatty. They gave them bread, a cooked fruit, and an egg. And they put something in with that breakfast that shows up on X-ray. And they found out that everybody's stomach was empty in 4.5 hours. Now, I want you to remember the 4.5 hours. So that was the whole group. Now they're going to divide them into 5 different groups. And the first one, they fed them breakfast. And then 2 hours later, they fed group 1 an ice cream cone. When was the stomach empty? With just breakfast? 4.5 hours. What happened with the ice cream cone? There was still some of the breakfast in the stomach at 6 hours. The next group, they fed them breakfast and then they gave them a peanut butter sandwich. And there was still some of the breakfast in the stomach 9 hours after eating it. This is obviously an American study, and they fed them, the third group, a breakfast and then a pumpkin pie and a glass of milk. And yet too, they found some of the breakfast still in the stomach 9 hours later. Now it starts getting interesting. The fourth group, they fed them breakfast and then they fed them a half a slice of bread and butter. That's it, every 1.5 hours. And when they looked, more than half the breakfast was still in the stomach after 9 hours. And the last one, they fed them the breakfast and they took one of these bars. What type of bar should we have? A Mars bar. And they cut it into 4 pieces. And so they have the breakfast, and then twice in the morning, they fed them 1/4 of a Mars bar and 1/4 of a Mars bar. And twice in the afternoon, 1/4 of a Mars bar and 1/4 of a Mars bar. And they found out that 13.5 hours later, more than half the breakfast was still in the stomach. So I think this gives us an idea that maybe eating in between meals gives a problem. But it's hard to say, I'm not going to eat in between meals. So what we want to do now is to actually teach you to set yourself up so that you will not want to eat in between meals. I think most of you people know that whole grains are really better for us. Let's look at white bread and whole wheat bread. What is white bread? If you look at the picture on the right-hand side, you're going to see a whole lot of little flaps like pages. That's actually the outer lining of a wheat kernel. And when you have white or soft brown bread, what they've done is they've taken the germ out at the bottom, and the germ has the health. And they've taken the bran off on the outside, which helps to keep all the machinery working. And all they do is they leave behind the starch. Very little nutrition, excepting some energy into it. And the germ at the bottom and the bran are the things that really help prevent constipation and disease. Nshima, it's a great favorite, isn't it? I want to challenge those who do eat it to really look at what they're buying. I haven't found any yellow maize yet in Lusaka, but I'm imagining there is some, but that's not the big issue. The difference between yellow maize and white maize is just the yellow maize has got magnesium in it, which relaxes you. The white maize doesn't have it. And that yellow color acts as a medicine. So all colors in food are actually proven medicines. And so what we need to try and find when we're buying our maize meal for Nshima and the other things that we want to do with it is to try and find traditional village homegrown maize. Try and find it whole as it comes. And I want to tell you in the beginning, this is a challenge because you're going to walk around. But what you need to do is to go and ask. I remember the one place that we were at, we couldn't find any whole food. There were hardly any fruit and vegetables. And all we did is we went to the manager of a supermarket. I was the first one who went in and said, please can't you order us this and that and that and that? And the next day we had somebody else go in and say, please can't you order this and that and that and that. The following day we had somebody else go into the manager, and you've got to find the manager, not anybody else. Can you get us these? And we did it for 5 days. And slowly these foods started coming in. And one day the manager caught me and he said, I'm so delighted with I'm so glad you asked us to get it. I'll never go back to the other foods again, the refined ones. So be suspicious of any maize meal that has got super on the packet, or with added vitamins and minerals. It means they've taken out all the goodness, they've taken out the roughage, and you are left with just the energy part of it. You really want those health bits. We haven't cost you anything yet. It's all just learning, and here we're going to bed with the stomach empty. If you really want a quality life and you want your digestion to work well, this is one of the best things that you can actually do. And there are questions. There are people who like 3 meals a day. There are people who like 2 meals a day. But your important thing that you need to do is to actually make sure that you have your last meal 3 hours before we go to bed. Now, we've got it all wrong, don't we? Because we start with a small breakfast, we have a slightly bigger lunch, and then we have this enormous meal, our dinner, late at night. When you go to sleep, your tummy actually slows down. It's tired as well. It needs to rest. So if you've eaten late at night and there's still food in your stomach, remember the word fermenting? Going rotten. That's what happens to the food. So what we want to do is we're going to teach you how to have breakfast like a king, and lunch like a prince, and supper like a poor person. And it's not hard to do, and once you know how to do it. So, breakfast should actually be almost your largest meal of the day. And they did huge studies in America, and the biggest one was the Iowa breakfast study, where they took children and they tested them to see why are these children performing so badly, and what can we actually do to make a difference. And so they fed some children a really good breakfast, and others they fed a poor breakfast, and those who had a good breakfast were just the winners all the way. They did everything far better than those who hadn't had a breakfast. And I want to tell you, I've got a whole lineup of studies here, and there are lots more that show breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So we're going to have to teach you how to make a good breakfast, so that you don't spend the whole morning cooking before you have to go to work. So, let's talk about breakfast. What is a good breakfast? And the easiest one is for that to become the meal where you're going to eat your fruit. Now remember, those colors, those tastes, and those smells of the food are all medicines. So if you can have at least 2 fruits for breakfast, but if you don't have the money, work your way there. Even if you can just have 1/3 of a banana to start with that you're going to share with other people, go ahead and do it. And then this is the one where you have a whole grain porridge for breakfast. And what you're slowly going to work towards is to actually having 2 or 3 grains in it. And the more grains you're going to have, the more stable your blood sugar is going to be. So listen to what I've just said. I've just said that I've talked about blood sugar. So this is tied up with diabetes. And if you want to lick diabetes, it is reversible. Not maybe, it is reversible. We've got to get your breakfast going. And hopefully that's part of what the team are going to teach you. So what I've done here is I've just taken a whole lot of different grains, and I've got how much of the grain and how much water, and this is something that you can use when they do cooking classes with you. So we've had the fruit in the breakfast, we've had the grain in the breakfast, and if you can, you're going to have a slice or two of bread. You must make this meal big. And we're now going to go back to the blood sugar story. And I want to show you what a normal blood sugar. So check that little curve and you're going to see something happening. Look at the curve going up slowly and down slowly. So it started at 8 in the morning and it went down slowly to 1 o'clock. You can actually learn to manipulate that to suit your own lifestyle. Do you remember what the good lifestyle looked like? It went up slowly and down slowly. What most people have is a blood sugar that goes like this. And you're going to struggle to sort out most of your health problems if you don't get this one sorted out. And you'll never, ever be able to stop eating in between meals if this blood sugar keeps going up and down like this. So how are you going to know if your breakfast is enough? Because each one of you can sort out your breakfast perfectly according to your needs. So if you become hungry a little while before your next meal, you didn't eat enough. If you become hungry just before, say a half an hour before your next meal, you had a perfect breakfast. So you ate breakfast, and now just before your lunch, you became hungry. You've got exactly the right amount. So you never need to go hungry. If you need to lose weight, you will lose weight. We find people who have to put on weight actually put on weight as well. And so if you're not hungry at the next meal, you ate too much food at the breakfast, and you know you must cut out a slice of bread, whatever it is. So you can design your breakfast exactly for what you need. And if you have your breakfast right, you will not want to eat in between meals. It's absolutely guaranteed. It's amazing how it works. Right, we're coming to another principle, and that's try and have at least 5 servings of fruit or vegetables a day. Not 5 fruit and 5 vegetables, but together. So we're going to talk about that. And what they have found, if you want to cut down your risk of developing cancer dramatically in 3 years, have 5 servings a day. And what they know is the sicker you are, the more fruit and vegetables you must eat. So, here we have what is a serving. It's very easy. If it's raw, it's a cupful. If it's cooked, what happens when you cook things? It'll only fill a half a cup, sometimes even less if you're doing spinach. But that is basically how you get. So you need 5 servings. If it's cooked, you're going to, that's half cups. If it's raw, it's full cups that you're going to have. Now, if you look at the plate of food that is both sides, when you're giving so many complicated foods, do you see there's been a lot of cooking that's had to go on there? Not many vegetables. There's stuff inside of the leaves. we need to learn to prepare our food more simply. And when it's cooked foods, cut down on what you are having. Keep it simpler. I want to read a quote again from one of my favorite authors, and it says, "After the stomach, which has been overtaxed, has performed its task, it becomes exhausted, which causes faintness. Yet many are deceived and think it is the want of food which produces such relief. That's a faintness. And without giving the stomach time to rest, they take more foods, for which time removes the faintness. But it comes back, and the more the appetite is indulged, the more it clamors for food. It wants you to eat. It tries to say, eat, 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 when it's actually exhausted." So we're still talking about not too great a variety at any meal. If you look at the dishes there, when it gets to salads and you're eating raw food, you can put a lot of different colors together. But when it's the cooked food, do you see the one on the left-hand side has got less dishes on it? And just remember, a salad is absolutely crucial to health. And the more variety of colors and tastes in it, the better it's going to be for you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So now, we're planning this meal. Do you remember we planned breakfast? And we started with some fruit, just because we moved all our fruit for the day into that meal. And then we had some porridge, and we had some bread and a spread over it. Now we're going to the starch. And you have such an absolutely amazing selection of starches here in Zambia. As I walked around the shops today, I had a look to see what was available. And you'll see the middle one, I've got nshima at the back, and you've got some beans to go over it, and there's some greens. I want you to start asking the manager when they buy pasta or macaroni or spaghetti to please get the high fiber one. Don't buy the white one. You want the fiber, and because it helps to keep your bowel clean, to keep it moving. So we had different ones. We had maize meal, brown rice. Please go for brown rice. Again, it's an education thing of the managers. And potatoes, whole grain pasta, macaroni, sweet potatoes, barley, cassava, millet. You've got such a wonderful variety here. So you started with the starch. This is the main meal. Then you go into the protein. And immediately your head thinks, animal products. No. They've done tests on equivalent weights of vegetables and animal products. And what they came up was that vegetables had 34.1 grams of that weight, and the animal products, the meat, had 34.7 grams. So it had a little bit more, but your protein is everywhere. You are not deficient if you're not eating animal products. And I just gave a few here. Spinach is 49% protein. Broccoli, 45%. Cauliflower, 40%. Mushrooms, 38%. Peas, green peas, 28%. Parsley, 34%. Maize, 15%. And so it's not hard to start making healthful changes to your diet and not have to rely on animal products all the time. Right, so we got our starch, and we talked about the protein, and now we're going to color. And so the color coding is the vegetable. We want something red or orange or purple on that dish. Remember, we're looking for medicines. We want the healing medicines. And then we want a green food and a leafy food. Now, a pea is green, but it's not leafy. So if you have peas, you want a leafy. And I've discovered that leafies are really not difficult to get hold of at all in Zambia. You are so blessed. You truly are. So you can see there are many foods that are in the red-orange group. There are many that are in the green group. And don't leave out those leafies. They're absolutely essential to your health. And now is something that may challenge a few people just because you're not used to it. If you want the highest quality of health, then you start putting 1/3 of your plate as raw. And you're going to work there. If you're not used to raw, start small and keep adding more until you're actually filling up your plate with the 1/3 raw. And when you're not used to raw, chop it quite finely in the beginning. And you'll get to the point where you will really love it. And there are lots of lovely salad dressings that you can have with it that are going to make you really enjoy it. It soon will become a very important part of your actual meal. Now I'm taking you through to fats. And there are some fats which we do not need to eat in the diet, but there are other fats which we do. Now, we always think that a fat is margarine or butter or an oil that we have to do. But did you know that the really healthy fats are absolutely everywhere? So I looked at your Zambian diet, and all those pictures there are even a banana, a turnip, pumpkin seeds, okra, all of those are very high in fats. So we've got some there: linseed, dried beans, pumpkin seeds, avocados, bananas, spinach, green leafy plants, sweet potatoes, turnips, and okra. If you're having a variety of these, you're getting enough oil. You don't need any more. And here comes the hard part, because we need to talk to you about the yellow oils, the yellow fats. They've all gone through a factory. They have heated them up to very high temperatures. Then they become very stinky. Then they've got to put chemicals into them to stop the stink. So now we've got added chemicals, and they really hurt your health. They really, really hurt your health. And they're one of the biggest causes of cancer. So we've got to start trying to move away from the yellow oils and the margarine as well. In South Africa, it's illegal to say that margarine is good for you on the advertising. And a few months ago, there were some studies that came out where they're saying they now believe that these yellow oils are actually more damaging for you than even what white sugar is. And we know white sugar is not good for us. We must be very careful of damaged oil. And the moment you see smoke coming out of the pan, please know that oil is damaged. Don't use it. You need to get rid of it and start over again. So when you're working with oil, don't turn your temperature of your stove or your gas or even your fire up to high. Turn it down to about 2/3, and you won't have a problem of the smoking oil. And the other bit that's very dangerous in it are the little bits that float around that go very dark brown or black. Those are also very, very cancer-causing. And never reuse oil. I don't care if it's been strained. I don't care what's happened. Please don't use it. Just keep those temperatures down when you're actually frying. And now comes the nice part. You're going to make your changes just one at a time. And each week you need to push yourself on one more, make another. Some of you will be able to do it faster, but some will struggle to do it. And every single thing that you do, your body will absolutely love it. The moment you start doing good things to it, it'll talk to you very happily. And so we talked a little bit about Nshima. And please don't forget that you've got other grains here as well. What I haven't found, but I've been told is around, is millet. I've seen cassava. I've seen brown rice. But just start going healthy. just choosing brown rice instead of white rice is a change. That's not too difficult, is it? And so what I did is I looked at Zambia and what your traditional foods were. And I saw all sorts of colors because that's what I'm looking at. In the traditional diets, the way Africa as a whole did it was meat was only reserved for special occasions. It was used as a flavorant, but it wasn't, it was used as like a stock cube. And oh, what a wonderful variety of things that foods that you have that come out of the ground and that grow on top. I hope you're feeling hungry as you've seen these food. Now, what I've just shown you, is that the diet you've been eating? Or is this the diet that you're eating? Have we lost where we've come from? Are you eating a wide variety of vegetables, or are you eating just the same thing every day? See, just adding a new vegetable to it is making a change. Remember, we said we're going to make one change at a time. Do you think that the Zambian diet has gone junk west? That we've got onto fast foods? Now, are you remembering that if you've had enough to eat, you won't feel hungry until just before the next meal? Folks, I really want to say, if you don't get breakfast sorted out, you won't get diabetes sorted out, you won't get hypertension sorted out, you won't get all of the other common diseases sorted out. We really need to get breakfast sorted out. Are you eating a breakfast so that you don't feel hungry until just before the next meal? Are you prepared to try and start try salads, eating some raw along with it? I'm leaving you with one last little teaser at this point. They have found the best thing, if you're really sick, is to put yourself to eat all your food in 8 hours. And that's not difficult. Remember, you're still having a big breakfast. You're eating enough food there. If you've got that right, you will not be hungry until the next meal. But that's for another time. Now, I want to take you into a topic, and it's the last little bit that we're doing, where they have found that those who live the longest eat the least animal products. That's every single study that goes that way. And then the China study is a huge one. And they found out that the more animal products that you eat, the more lifestyle diseases you're going to have. It's a thick book like that. And it just came through time after time. The more vegetables you eat, the healthier you're going to be, the longer you're going to live. The more animal products you eat, the sicker you're going to be, and the shorter you're going to live. And just for a moment, I think parts of Zambia are going that way with their commercial feedlots. Do you see, if you look at that picture, those animals are having absolutely no grass to chew on. They're forced fed. And what happens to them in the process is they're given antibiotics because it makes them put on weight faster. But they're finding out in these studies, I just went and pulled some stuff off of the web, and the first thing I picked off was said, antibiotic-resistant bacteria are not coming from people taking antibiotics, they're coming from animal taking antibiotics. And then about the recycled animal waste, again, just pulled a picture, enlarged it, and there it was, a dairy farm, and it says it's recycled. 100% of the manure is recycled. It goes to a feed processing plant, and it goes back to the animals. This is chickens, this is cows, so they're eating it, they're not vegetarian anymore, and then we get to eat the meat. And the big thing is that they are implanting hormones, and these are steroid hormones. And in the old days, Men hardly ever had a prostate problem. And women didn't have any problems with menopause. They got to menopause and they actually became an honored member of society at that particular point. And nowadays, everybody has problems. The young girls have problems. Something's going wrong, and we're the cause of it unknowingly. I think we've been tricked into it, and we need to make the difference. And there's no doubt that eating animal products causes cancer. They can now see it in the laboratory, exactly what happens. And I want you to look at that cow's udder. From the hormones and the antibiotics they get fed, that is so swollen, that is so painful. That cow is really suffering. A cow shouldn't have an udder that big. And they found when it's big like that, there's lots of pus in the milk. Now, the farmers are not supposed to, if a cow has an udder like that, they're not supposed to put that milk in. They're supposed to discard it, but they don't. It goes into a big tank where it gets watered down with all its pus, and it gets taken off to the factories where the milk gets bottled. So I just want to say thank you very much. It's been such an honor to have you here, and we'll see you again tomorrow night. Bye.